Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 25th, 2022 New Bern Board of Aldermen meeting. Tonight, the prayer will be given by Alderman Royal.
Thank you, Mayor Odham. Our prayer will be offered this evening by Bishop Holly Raby, East Coast Coalition of Pastors.
Amen. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Amen. God bless you all. Amen. Today is a great day. Let us go in prayer. Blessed Father, we thank you and we bless you for this day. Today is a great day. It is a day that we have never had. It is a day that you have made, and it's a day that we shall rejoice and be glad in. We are grateful of your infinite wisdom, your blessings, and your grace. We honor you as the God of this land and the God of this city. And we ask your blessings and your presence here today. We pray the power of your wisdom to be upon us all. Ask that you would minister to everyone here, to this city leadership, and the mayor and the aldermen and everyone that's present. I pray, God, that your peace and your love would be upon us all.
Yes.
Now have your way in this place. Guide us and direct us with your counsel. It's my desire, Lord, that everything that will be said and done would bring you glory. Now it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you would please join me in the pledge of flag of our country.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Creel.
Here.
Alderman Royal.
Here.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Odham.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Bernson.
Here. Board, has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
Yes, Mayor, if there's no changes to the agenda, make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the consent agenda. What's the board's desire?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's do a roll call, starting with Alderman Creel.
Alderman Creel.
Yes.
Alderman Royal.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Odham.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Bernson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to number 8. Mr. Manager, we've got a public safety update.
Yes, sir. At this time, I'd like to ask Chief Gallagher to come up and give an update. We've had a string of instances that occurred over the last few weeks, and so we wanted him to provide the most recent update.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, Board of Aldermen, Mayor. Over the past several months and weeks, our nation has seen an increase in senseless gun violence. This has fallen upon our state, and unfortunately, we have seen it in New Bern. These senseless acts of violence has resulted in a death and injuries to members of our community. I pay great deference, and I have great respect for the families and our community that is in fear of their safety. The New Bern Police Department and other law enforcement entities in Craven County are here to protect its citizens, and we're doing everything to deter crime and to solve crime. I want to provide some context into some recent incidences that has occurred since the beginning of this month, and I'll start on October 8th. On October 8th, 600 block of First Street, several individuals encountered each other and began to shoot at one another. That resulted in the death of an 18-year-old New Bern resident. Our investigation is ongoing. We do have a person of interest, and we have identified additional leads that we are following up, and we are hopeful that we will be able to bring charges to those responsible for that homicide case. Several days later, on October 13th, 4 of our citizens were at a residence on New Bern Avenue, where they became the latest victims of a drive-by style assault. All 4 of those victims survived their injuries. Officers, investigators, members of the New Bern Violent Crime Unit, forensic specialists arrived on scene and began the preliminary investigation to recover additional evidence. Leads are being followed up, and we hope to bring closure to that investigation. Those 2 cases right now are still active. That same evening, on Washington Avenue and within an hour, Carolina Avenue, a drive-by style shooting occurred on both locations. Officers, after the second shooting, spotted a suspicious vehicle and a short pursuit ensued. The vehicle crashed at the traffic circle right over here at East Front Street and Broad Street. 4 subjects were eventually taken into custody. 3 of the suspects fled the scene, and officers from the New Bern Police Department made the arrest of those 3 suspects. We wish to thank members of the Craven County Sheriff's Office who responded to assist us that night. That night, all of our officers were on hyper alert because we had a quadruple shooting, then another drive-by within several hours, and then a third. We believe that our officers took the appropriate measures to engage in canvassing the areas of egress from those locations, and which resulted in the eventual arrest of those suspects. During an article search of that particular arrest, we were able to recover firearm evidence that will be used in connection with the future prosecution. Arrested on that incident was an adult 21-year-old by the name of Keyshawn Williams and 2 juveniles. All 3 of those subjects were charged that night with discharging a firearm into an occupied dwelling. Mr. Williams, the adult, was later charged with the following: assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to kill, conspired to assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, injury to real property, and discharging a firearm within city limits. There was a 4th subject involved in that incident, and that was a juvenile female, and she was charged with 2 counts. One was felony fleeing to elude and conspiracy to discharge a firearm into an occupied dwelling. Last Monday, or actually 2 Mondays ago, on the 17th, at the McDonald's on News Boulevard, shortly after 9 p.m., New Bern police officers responded to the McDonald's and investigated, once again, a senseless act of violence with a firearm. Fortunately, no one was injured at that scene. A 17-year-old was charged with a concealed weapon, possession of a firearm by a minor, and discharging a firearm within city limits. Those cases have been solved and cleared. On the 17th of this month, at 9:15 a.m., a lone subject entered the facility at Fort Totten and displayed a weapon to the clerks. Tellers gave the suspect approximately $1,900 in U.S. currency. The subject fled the scene prior to officers arriving. When responding officers arrived, they began to conduct a search of the area for anyone matching the description of the suspect. Officers stopped an individual later identified as Raymond Osio, that's O-S-O-R-I-O, 32 years of age, and he's from Raleigh, North Carolina, and conducted an investigative stop. That subject was later found to be responsible for the robbery. We recovered the weapon and subsequently recovered the monies taken during that robbery, and he was charged with robbery with a deadly weapon and resist, obstruct, and delay. Those incidences, let me restate that, we have not had another type of incident like that since the arrest on October 14th. Again, we have 2 active cases that I cannot comment on. We are aggressively seeking to bring closure to those 2 active cases, to include the homicide. We have taken proactive measures in response to the spike in violence, to include adding additional staff each night in the affected areas, and also other strategies that I would prefer not to make public at this point. There is always a threat in every community with respect to violence, but our relationship with our partners in the region, to include the Sheriff's Office and our staff, we're committed to provide safety to our community, and I'm prepared to answer questions that I'm able to, if you have any of me.
Board have questions?
Chief, do you think they're related, other than the robbery, probably?
If I might, and this is not a direct answer to your question, the shooting on McDonald's is not related to any of the other incidences.
Okay.
That was an isolated incident in which we were able to bring closure to that.
Chief, if I could, the incidents that you have outlined this evening are unfortunately, a symptom of what we're seeing around the country. And I know over the last week or so, I've seen an increase in, I think, a level of anxiety where residents of Ward 1 have reached out to me, to ask, and I think to the rest of the board as well, asking what are we doing to address, not just these criminal activities, but some other very broad symptomatic issues that the country is facing. And in speaking to a resident this morning, it was clear to me that it might be beneficial if the city, your department, could maybe work on a presentation that we can figure out how to try to get it out to the community on how individuals can take precautions to give themselves at least a heightened sense of security while they're in their homes, while they're outside the homes, while they're driving. It could be just simple things. Keep an outside light on. Make sure you lock your doors. Don't open your doors if you get a knock on the door at a rather odd hours. Just some very simple things that people, I think, need to be educated on. And again, I'm kind of focusing on more just self-awareness, situational awareness. Again, when they're in the house, when they're out of the house, to put together some kind of a presentation or communication that we can get out to the community and out to residents. It's not going to address the bigger issues that you're dealing with, but I think it would help that heightened level of anxiety that people are feeling right now. That they can have at least a little more self-control over, you know, around what's happening around themselves.
I think that's an excellent idea, Alderman, and allow me to go back to my staff, and we will strategize how best to deliver that message to our community.
Anybody else?
Chief, I'd like to thank you for the presence that you have stepped up to the plate to respond to what has happened in the community. And I take my hat off to you because it's a very, very serious situation. It's a bad situation. But the presence that you have brought up, I am impressed with that. And thank you and the manager for coming together to show the presence in the community, to give the people some sort of security of being safe. The presence is everything when they can see a man on foot, a man in his car, and he's saying hello, how is everything going? That's impressive to me, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Alderman.
Another thing, Chief, also, I believe that the community watch programs might already have some literature or some type presentation that could assist in communities feeling more protected or more safe, simple steps that they can take, and certainly I believe that would be an avenue for the police department perhaps to utilize some of the tools that's already available.
Chief, again, thank you for, you know, the service that you provide, you and your officers provide for our citizens. And I just want to know, I'm going to allude, Alderman Odham alluded to what I was going to ask, questions I was going to ask when he said you had officers out on foot walking in the communities. Is that correct?
No, we have our officers in our marked patrol cars to have more visibility throughout the entire community.
Okay. Well, I know patrolling the area and having officers in cars is a first step. But with me, I think that there should be more involvement within the community with our officers. When, you know, you see a citizen walking, you know, if that officer would stop and speak to that citizen and ask that citizen, is everything okay in your community? And build that trust, and that trust. If the citizens, if you build the trust of the citizens within the community, you would get more communication out of the community. You would get a lot, you would have a hands-on approach to a lot of things that is going on in your community, about to happen in your community. But I just think the citizens are not feeling that the police presence there, and it's making a lot of citizens, as Alderman Priels mentioned, you know, uneasy, and it's becoming an anxiety safety issue for citizens. But I just think if the involvement with officers within the community, when you just get out and talk to the citizens and build that trust, I think we'll see a big improvement, especially in the hotspot areas of our cities. And I'll just be real frank with it, and that's Ward 5 and Alderman Hazelroy, or Ward 2. So, but again, I commend you and your officers for all that you do, and you know, and I know you will continue to try your best to keep our city safe.
Thank you.
Mayor, Alderman, I think this is also a good time to remind the citizens that we do have the TIP 411 program. You can go onto our website, or you can download it on your smartphone on the Google platform. I believe we're still waiting for the iPhone version to drop on that app. But if you know about a crime, report it. It's anonymous. Police will get that information, and they'll do their investigation on that. Also, New Bern Alerts. That's our new alert system. That was rolled out about a month or 6 weeks ago, and it's a very smart software. And one of the things that we can do, and we had significant conversations with the chief and with the public information officer after this string of events, we're able to even locate the general area that a crime occurs. And if it's something like what has happened, we can do a geo map in an area to alert the citizens of something that's going on. So we've had our internal discussions on what the best staff is in order to send those alerts out, and we've definitely identified the folks at dispatch that are going to be working on that. So we're going to be doing some training with that staff. So hopefully we don't have situations like this to occur very often, but when they do, we want to make sure that the citizens are made aware of these situations as soon as reasonably possible.
Chief, what's the rough estimate? What's the average age of those involved with all of these incidents?
Young adults, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, that range.
I certainly don't have the answer to this problem. My mind can't quite fathom how somebody just takes life for granted. Whether it's putting yourself in danger, putting someone else in danger, I can't comprehend that. But there's two things that I think these folks need to understand. Number one, Bishop, they need prayer. I think we all know that. We need some prayer in our community to show these young adults that this is not the path forward for them. But they also need to understand that from a law enforcement standpoint, I know I speak for you and behalf of the sheriff, we're not going to tolerate this. I mean, we're just not. And preventing things, it's much easier. Your counterpart in the fire department has an easier job at doing what they do as far as preventing things than what the police department does. But we just need to make sure that the message is clear that if someone needs help, if they need some support, they just need to ask for it. But this is not the answer to whatever their problems that they're facing. And it's not going to be tolerated. And I know that you stand behind me with that statement.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chief, how is your recruiting going? Are you getting close to being fully staffed?
I would like to be optimistic, and I genuinely am optimistic. I will tell you that it remains a challenge, not just in this city, but industry-wide.
Sure.
We have taken some additional proactive approaches to try to identify good candidates who we can hire early prior to training. It's the first time we've done that. We are down 7 officers right now, plus we have 4 that are in training, so that's 11 staff that I do not have available on the street. We continue to recruit the best talent out there. We want to be as diverse as possible. We try to encourage all those that are going through the BLET program in the regions around why New Bern Police Department is the location for them. I'm strategizing with the city manager and the assistant city manager on how to create the best recruitment package for those that are out there that are making choices. Do I go to Greenville? Do I go to the Sheriff's Department? Do I go to New Bern? We believe that New Bern is a destination point for our profession. We're an accredited agency, and we can offer a great deal to our staff. We just have to be able to entice them to come. And the other part to that, if you don't mind me filibustering just a little bit, is that retention piece. And we continue to strategize. In fact, the assistant city manager and I had a conversation this morning about some opportunities that we have to try to make our retention stronger for our incumbent staff.
How about your K-9 units? Are they fully
We are fully staffed, and Alderman Astor, thank you so much for the monies to allow us to buy that.
the mayor as well?
To buy that 4th canine dog.
So have you always had just 4?
We had 4, we now have 5, so we
Okay.
are fully staffed with 5 dogs.
Great.
Thank you.
Board, any more questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Moving along to item number 9, we've got recognition of the New Bern 101 graduates. Mr. Manager.
So Mayor and Alderman, New Bern 101 is a program that allows citizens to basically look behind the curtain, so to speak, and to see how the operations of the city are. I mean, you can drive through any street of any city in the world, and you don't really know what's going on. You don't know what it takes to make sure that you've got power, that you've got water and sewer, that you've got recreation programs going on, that the grass is mowed, that your ditches are cleaned out and things like that. And it takes a lot of work. And so with New Bern 101, this gives our participants an opportunity to meet one-on-one with our city staff. They get to see exactly what our staff does. They learn about the budget process. They get indoctrinated in public safety and fire, and they get to experience a lot of activities. And we have had some conversations with the participants tonight, and we got to hear what they liked a lot about it, and we've got to hear some recommendations on how to improve this program. But this is the third offering we've done, and our goal is to offer this twice a year. Our next class is going to be on February 23rd. That's when it's going to start, and it's about an 8-week program. Meet once a week for about 3 hours, and it's really a great opportunity to find out how local government operates, and then how you can get involved as well. And so we're excited tonight that we've got 13 graduates, and at this time we're going to give a certificate out, and I'd like to ask the governing board to come down on the other side here, and we're going to congratulate these folks.
And we have 2 people who have already applied for the spring session. First is Mr. Marshall Ballard. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Carol Beckton. Mr. Robert Benjamin. Miss Mary Davidson. Ms. Deidre DeRocher. All right, Mr. Pedro Jimenez. Ms. Kathleen Marty. Mr. Ed McDonough. Husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. David and Catherine Sevier. I figured you'd come up at the same time. Curtis Stewart. And last but not least, Miss Michelle Stout. Thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen and City Managers. You may return to your seats. New Bern 101 class, if you could gather in this area here, we'd love to take a group photo. You do not need to bring your certificate. Good question.
Thank you.
You might want to pass it down. There used to be some up there. I can't even need some.
Here, they got some? Yeah, they got some.
Okay, congratulations again to that graduating class. We'll move on to number 10, conduct a public hearing on the rezoning of 4416 U.S. Highway 17 South. Mr. Manager.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Shelley to come forward and make his presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman.
Good evening.
So tonight, before your hearing begins, I'll give you a briefing on the rezoning. The applicant is Corey Thomas, and the location, as aforementioned, 4416 South US 17. Currently, the existing zoning is R10 residential, and they're proposing to change it to C3 commercial district. The size is half an acre, and the parcel is currently undeveloped, and so the present land use is that it is vacant. This is an aerial view of the property, which is outlined in the bright light blue. You can see it's directly along US 17 South, and immediately adjacent to the west is a house. To the east is a vacant lot, and to the rear is a house as well. And just in general, you can see there's also some other vacant pieces of property there, as well as some more developed parcels along US 17 South. As opposed to the rear, there are some rather spread out housing in that. And across the way, you can also see housing as well. So that is primarily due to the zoning. We have currently the site is R10 residential district, as I mentioned, which allows for single and two-family homes, 10,000 square foot minimum size lots for one-family dwellings, and then an additional 5,000 square feet of lot size is required for each additional unit, since there could be more than one unit. So as opposed to the proposed zoning, which is C3, it's a commercial district. It does allow offices, personal services, retail sales of goods, and they're generally located on major radial roads. The emphasis is on off-street parking, controlled traffic movement, and an appropriate appearance, including suitable planting, is required. This is a more thorough comparison of all the uses here. On the right-hand side is the current one, and then we've tried to line them up with also the proposed uses in the C3. So both uses, both zoning districts allow single-family residential, both allow townhomes. The R10 allows a duplex, whereas C3 allows multifamily development. They both allow, the C3 allows hotels and motels. They both allow government offices, schools, nursery schools, daycares, religious facilities, athletic facilities, emergency services, and utility facilities. The C3 also allows commercial offices, nursing homes, retail, manufacturing, banks, restaurants and bars, hospitals, bowling and pool halls, drive-in and movie theater, car sales and repair, gasoline sales, and indoor storage. Keeping in mind that on a half-acre lot, many of those things can't be done or don't fit. The surrounding zoning on the north side is R20 residential. That was that scattered housing I was talking about. To the south, across US 17, is R10 residential. East, so to the right-hand side of the property, is already commercial C3. And to the west is immediately adjacent is R10, but beyond that is all C3 commercial. We'll see that in a second on the map again. So the utilities for this property, city water service is available to this site, but no sewer is available. So that alone will also reduce the amount of intensity of the use because septic systems would be required. City electric service is not available to this site, so this is a Duke electric service area. So according to the 2022 land use plan update, which you all just adopted a few months ago, the area is classified as developed within the Martin Luther King Boulevard focus area. It allows for a mix of land uses in that area. The residential densities are from a maximum of 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre, just according to the land use plan. Higher densities are permitted within multifamily residential planned unit developments and zoning overlay districts within commercial areas. This area is also characterized by urban and higher intensity uses that require urban municipal or public service. and incompatible uses within this land classification are industrial and agricultural land uses. So these are essentially from the land use plan, which is kind of the goals for the area. It's not actually the zoning requirements. For the environment, according to the land use plan, subject property has suitability, high suitability for development. And according to the North Carolina Floodplain Mapping Program, the property is located within the minimal risk flood risk zone, Zone X, on the flood risk information system, which is to say it's outside the floodplain. So in addition, as some additional temporal context, we'll see that immediately adjacent, let's see, can I point with the pointer? Oh, yeah, it does not work on the screen. Sir, can we get a pointer on there? All right. I'll have to describe it. You'll see on the right-hand side, there's three properties that are outlined in blue. The one on the right is immediately adjacent to the subject property. And that one was rezoned from R10 to C3, just like this one. And that was in 2017. Then the next one in the middle, that was rezoned from R20 to C3 back in 2013, it looks like.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the third one in the bottom left was rezoned from A5 to C3 back in 2007. So the recommendation from the staff and the Planning and Zoning Board are for the proposal to rezone the subject parcel to C3 Commercial District as consistent with the character of the adjacent land uses and the 2022 Land Use Plan update. And the Planning and Zoning Board heard this request at their October 5, 2021 meeting and recommended approval with a unanimous vote. That concludes our summary.
Does the board have any questions before we open the public hearing?
Yes, I do. Mr. Shelley, I know your office did their due diligence and made sure that a public announcement was made of this upcoming public hearing to the citizens?
That's correct. That included the notice in the newspaper and signage around the property.
Okay. When was the signage erected around the property? Do you know, a week from today, 2 weeks, a month?
I don't remember. I don't know exactly the specific dates, but I do know that the zoning officer has assured me that they were done on the appropriate timing for the that's required by statute.
Thank you.
Mr. Shelley, just real quick, I know that this matter was heard by the previous board, I think late last year or earlier this year. To the best of your knowledge, has anything changed between the time that this matter was before this board and tonight?
Well, the land use plan update has been adopted. I have to say, because I do not recollect being up here doing this presentation, it must have been before February, and we have adopted that plan in June. So that would be the only change there have been no zoning changes, if that's what you mean, or other relevant intervening changes.
Okay, thank you.
I guess maybe the only other change would be, we did change the size and format and color of our signs around the site. So those are now larger font on the text, and the color is a bright yellow sign.
And one more question on your slide 9, when we talk about the update, like you talked about too, the land use plan. When you mention Martin Luther King Boulevard focus area, that's for business, correct? It's a business corridor.
Well, it's actually a large area that includes business and potentially resident. It includes the Craven Forest area as well. So it's a large. In the plan, it's shown as a big circle. So it's bound to include a lot of other uses as well.
Okay.
I have a question also. You might be able to address it, or Mr. Davis. When an item has been off the agenda or tabled for this extended period of time for over a year, is there an ordinance or regulation that governs that this needs to go back to the planning and zoning to be revisited, or there is not an ordinance for that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Once it's past that step, it stays at this board, and they've renoticed it and started over as if it were fresh with this board.
Okay, at this time, I'll open a public hearing. If anyone desires to speak either for or against, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Constance Simmons. I reside at 4420 Highway 17 South. We are here once again before the board to express our opposition to the rezoning of the property located at 4416 Highway 17 South from R10 to C3, which is within 100 feet from my house. Please note that, as I stated on November the 9th, 2021, before the Board of Aldermen, I have firsthand knowledge how a business can affect a neighborhood. Let me give this board a little history. Sometime between 2003 and 2004, members of the Board of Aldermen approved a business coming between my home and my neighbor. This would not have occurred in such communities like River Bend or Carolina Colors or Trentwood or to Bern, just to name a few. However, a business was allowed to come into a predominant minority neighborhood between two residents. I would like to ask any member of this board the same question that was asked the last time I was here. Would you like a business between your home and your neighbor? We oppose the rezoning of the property at 4416 US Highway 17 from residential to commercial based on the same concerns that was given to a board on June the 23rd, 2020, and again on November the 9th, 2021. We do not want another business in close proximity to our residents. We are concerned regarding the noise factor because this is a quiet neighborhood with many seniors. If the property is rezoned to commercial, residents in the community will not have any control on what business will come into our community. The community could see an increase in strangers to our neighborhood and possibly crime, because we are concerned about the safety and the safety issue in having another business so close to a resident. The property in question, 4416 US Highway 17 South, is located within, as I stated earlier, 100 feet from my home and my cousins. Family members are concerned because a business will bring, as I stated, strangers to our neighborhood and disrupt the quiet and security of the community. Also, we could see an increase in traffic flow. It seems like commercialism is just taking over our community. Finally, I would like to reiterate that we strongly oppose the rezoning of property 4416 US Highway 17 from residential to commercial. We would like this board to know that Rocky Run community matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons.
If you would please, sir, just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ed Mallison, and my address is 266 Rocky Run Road. And a few of the people in the community of Rocky Run has asked me to address you concerning this matter. The previous spokesperson did a very good job of explaining to you how the neighborhood feel. I have approximately 61 signatures that's opposing the change of this property for the reasons that already have been stated. So I'm letting you know that the people in the community are not really on board with this change, if it can all be at all prevented, because of elderly people that's been in the neighborhood for quite some time, and it would disturb, to say, the peace and tranquility of the neighborhood. And that's what I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sandra Gray, 4418 Highway 17 South. My home site is right next door. Good afternoon to the mayor and all the board of aldermen. I would like to first ask a question. I know before Mayor Odham, was assigned as our representative. My question to you tonight is, who is assigned or who is our representative at the Rocky Run community? We don't need only an assignment, we need a representative. We need someone that's looking out for our interests in that community. The fence erected on the adjoining property in question is right next to my bedroom, and we showed you pictures of that before. Not only would my privacy be affected, but also my peace. I do not believe, and I'll reiterate what my cousin just said, I do not believe that any one of you that are seated here today or in this whole building, not even Corey Thomas, would want a business next door to their residence. The unknown intent of a person can be detrimental to another person. When we met last, we said, I heard that it was said that no new homes were being erected in that community. I beg to differ. We are now growing, our community is growing, and there are also homes being erected in the community. Now, I do not know the trend, I don't know business opportunities, whatever the case may be, but communities such as the Rocky Run community are being targeted to be taken over and the residents removed. But we as a community stand strong together in the effort to keep our community safe and peaceful. So I ask you to please consider not rezoning that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, all the aldermen. My name is Travis Oakley. I live at 319 Bell Oaks. I am the chairman of your Planning and Zoning Board for the city of New Bern. A couple points that I just want to reiterate here that Mr. Shelley brought up during his presentation. We're talking about an area, a corridor that's on a major highway coming in and out of New Bern. So far, I've heard that it's gonna, if we approve this zoning, this is gonna create noise. This is a highway that we're talking about. And if you go back to, I believe it's slide 9, that is mixed zoning on that corridor. There are already businesses on that corridor that were approved. So I'm not really sure what the issue is with this particular rezoning. The Planning and Zoning Board did a very good job in looking at the request and looking at the surrounding businesses. This is all mixed zoning on that corridor. This is a major highway coming in and out of New Bern. This is not a residential neighborhood that we're talking about. This is a corridor. And for people not thinking that this is not, that there are not going to be other businesses that want to try to rezone on that corridor, that's foolish to think that. So I would just reiterate the fact that this is not a neighborhood we are talking about. This is a highway corridor that already has mixed zoning. So I would just ask that the board keep that in mind, because if we set this precedence now that we're going to pick and choose, you're going to have an awfully hard time with people trying to bring businesses in here to the city of New Bern. As we all know, that corridor is a highway. Thank you.
My name is Kiara Holmes. I reside at 201 Rocky Run Road. We have a couple of residents that have already spoken, people that are in the area. Now, when you look at that, I understand that it is mixed. So for someone to see that, you see the C3, you see the R10, a lot of those that are C3 are still homes. This was a residential area of mostly elderly people. So a lot of the C3 got changed when they were approached to say that their value of the home would go up if it was changed to C3. So I do want you to keep that in mind as well, from the residents that reside in that area. Not businesses that's trying to come in the area, but residents, people that live there, that can come out their backyard, front yard, and feel comfortable because they're at home. So again, even though those particular areas may be marked as C3, they are homes that are on those particular properties that were resided by older people. So it's fun and it's interesting how we can bring up that point of C3 and R10, but please keep in mind, from the residents, not people that's just coming in trying to have a business, but from the residents that actually reside in that area, from Highway 17 to Rocky Run, because it's still noted as the Rocky Run community or the Rocky Run area. So it has to still be looked at some point as a residential. Now, we do have some businesses that did come in because properties got mixed up or lost or, sold, blah, 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 that's fine. But we still have homes there, and older people still reside there. And this is, again, from a resident of Rocky Run community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Thomas, the owner of property 4416 US 17 South. I live at 107 Culpeper Road in New Bern. I purchased the property in August of 2019, and I surveyed it, I cleared it, I fenced it, and since then I've maintained it. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And these are my reasons why I think it should be changed to commercial. The need for commercial businesses, because New Bern's growing out that way. Conformity. On my way here, I live on the opposite of River Bend. I counted 16 plus businesses from River Bend all the way to Ben Quinn. Gas stations, there's Carolina Equipment, AAA Polina, American Marina, Bates Plumbing, Mike's Tire. It just goes on and on and on. I feel for the community, I really do, but it is on a commercial corridor, and that's the way it's going, and I apologize to them. But, and the third reason is desirability and demand. I don't think that anybody's going to buy a piece of property on that corridor to build a house at this time, in my opinion. That property was up for sale for a while before I bought it, and anyway, that's my take on it. And any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have comments? Board, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, so moved.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Board? Thoughts, questions?
Let me begin by saying that I received concern from the residents in the Rocky Run community. I have communicated with them. They just reached out to express their opposition to the rezoning. And I certainly do understand and sympathize with them. They are lifelong residents of the community. They are invested there and at the Rocky Run community. So I do understand their position and what have you. But when I look at the overall picture, to understand that, is this consistent or inconsistent with what is already existing there? And again, in my opinion, I feel that, yes, economic impact is always welcome and the opportunity to expand, but then we have to also look at the trade-off. And I've heard the residents express the trade-off would be their tranquility or their peace, or at the expense of the elderly who have been residing there for years. I know personally the residents that are being referred to in the Rocky Run community. I'm familiar with them. And again, yes, economic impact, but yes, also citizens have a right to live in a community that they are well invested in without it being disturbed necessarily by businesses. And I know the growth and I know the trend, as Mr. Thomas had made mention of, and the businesses that are being located there. But again, I look at the situation with the residents, and would we say that this is consistent with the character of the area? The character of the area is one of peace, and is one of long-term investment. It's one where residents have been there for years and years, and I would hate to be a part of disturbing the tranquility and the peace that the residents have been enjoying for such a very, very long time. And again, to look at whether or not the zoning is for the benefit of the public and the adjoining property owners. And that's where that we would have to determine, is it consistent with. So again, I appreciate you coming. The residents, thank you for expressing your concerns, and certainly your voice has been heard, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear from the Rocky Run community. Thank you.
Thank you.
My position on this rezoning has not changed from when I first addressed it back in November of 2021. And I think it was Ms. Gray who asked us the question of who represents them. You have no one on the Planning and Zoning Board that represents you, that area, and unless this has changed, and I'm not aware of a representative. It has changed. Who is representing them now?
There's one appointment on the Planning and Zoning Board that represents the entire ETJ area.
Okay, so that has recently come about?
Since the zoning, since November, yes.
November?
Since the last rezoning.
Mr. Attorney,
Since the
could you
last time.
clarify, because there were some changes on that board, so the
Yes.
full board's aware.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, but the law requires that one seat be appointed to represent the ETJ. That's by law, and that's been in place for decades. So there has always been an ETJ rep on that board.
Alderman Best, I think we used to have 3 on there that represented the ETJ, and the issue with that is it became very disproportionate. Whenever you
Right.
looked at a citywide issue, you had 3 members of a Planning and Zoning Board that did not live in the city of New Bern making decisions within the city of New Bern. For the most part, that's what the Planning and Zoning Board here. So I think that's probably what you're referring to.
Yes, exactly. I too, as Alderman Royal mentioned, I'm all for our citizens when it comes to a citizen's home. I try to do everything that I can do to step up to the plate, to listen to the citizens and listen to the city as well. And you have to make the determining factor there is what is most important, our citizens, their way of life, where they live, what they have to go through. And as Alderman Royal said, this is a lifelong investment for citizens of the Rocky Run community. I know a lot of fine people that live out in Rocky Run, And two, again, as one of the, two of the residents mentioned, I would not want a business to come in beside my home. I would fight it tooth and nail as well. So, like I said, I still have reservations about this. I'm not gonna bring up anything from the November 2021 meeting, but, my position on this, I'm still gonna vote the same. I'm gonna vote no for not rezoning this to, C3.
Board? So just so the board's aware, as a reminder, because we don't do these every meeting, we would need to either consider adopting a statement of zoning consistency or inconsistency. And just for clarification, consistency means that you agree with the recommendation that has been put forward, which is to rezone it, which was a unanimous decision by the Planning and Zoning Board. If you disagree with that, which is what I believe I heard from the two aldermen that have spoken, then that would be a statement of inconsistency.
And Mr. Mayor, did the other new board members understand the difference between the ETJ and the city limits? Or do we need to go through that again?
Mr. Davis, could you give us a 30-second summary about the ETJ?
Mayor, members of the board, the extraterritorial jurisdiction is an area within a mile of the existing city boundary that the city has land use regulation authority over, just land use authority. These territories are not in the city proper, they don't pay city taxes, but they are subject to our land use rules. Typically, these were done decades ago to protect these communities from highway billboards and public nuisances. Many years ago, and again, the city has not forcibly annexed property since 1992, but back in those days, the legal theory was that you would extend your ETJ, your extraterritorial jurisdiction. Within a decade or two, you would follow that up with a forced annexation, and you would always keep moving out your ETJ to acclimate that territory to your land use regulation. But as the decades have gone by in North Carolina, forced annexations have become legally and politically very difficult. And the boards back in the 90s, after the painful annexation in 1992, decided that they would not do any more forced annexations. So that leaves you with an ETJ that largely surrounds the city without really a legal theory behind it anymore, because as a practical matter, there really aren't forced annexations. That's a longer answer than you're looking for.
That's good, thank you. It's a pleasure of the board on item number 10.
If there's no more questions by the board, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a statement of zoning inconsistency.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
If you vote yes, you're saying you don't agree with rezoning. I know it's always confusing, so.
Yes. Thank you for clarification.
Alderman Astor,
No.
Alderman Kinsey,
No.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
No.
Alderman Creel,
No?
Mayor Odom.
No. I believe the motion fails. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Anyone in the contrary interested in making a motion to adopt a zoning consistency?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt a statement of zoning consistency for 4416 US Highway 17 South.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So this motion will be, or this vote will be to support the rezoning from the residential R10 to C3. So let's have a roll call vote, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
No.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
No.
Mayor Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then, Mayor, I'd like to consider adopting an ordinance to rezone 4416 US 17 South from R10 Residential District to a C3 Commercial District.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? If not, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best,
No?
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
No.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Anything else to come before the board on item number 10, staff?
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
When are we going to talk about ETJs? I mean, this is,
We've got a list in front of us of proposed work session items, and we could certainly probably add that to it. I think staff has been prepared to discuss that for a while now.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, item number 11. Conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance to amend Section 5, Electric Line Extension Policy of City of New Bern Electric Department's Customer Service Policy.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Bouchard to come up and make this presentation.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Before you tonight, you have a resolution to update the electric line extension policy. The policy was last updated around 1999, as best as I can tell. These updates that we're proposing function very similar to the way the policy in 1990 functioned, such as it recovers costs associated with extending the public electric system, positions the utility to be competitive in areas of customer choice. It brings the policy up to date with our purchase power costs. It eliminates street lighting, transformers from the cost of construction, as these costs are recovered through our other rate designs. And additionally, the policy narrative has been reformatted to bring it up to current times, and we added some better definitions for clarity. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So Charlie, we have added an extra year instead of being 2 years, it's 3 years now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Which gives the contractor a little longer to recoup his down payment, his funds.
Yes, sir. It also makes us more competitive with the competition in the area. Those policies are in the 3-year range as well.
Thank you.
Charlie, out of the nearby utility companies, how many of them have the same type policy?
It's a mixed bag. Everything from give it all away to recover it all.
Well, our biggest competitor is Duke, is that correct?
Yes.
Does Duke have such a policy?
Yes, and it's a 3-year policy.
Okay.
So we're in line
Yes,
with
sir.
everybody else.
That was the intent, to try to,
That's the purpose of changing the policy, to be in line with everyone else.
yes, sir.
So Charlie, the street lights will be included now. The city would not actually be the one paying the total cost of installing street lights? Is that what you're?
The cost of installing the street light is not part of the cost that we pass on to the developer. The cost of the street light is included in our rates for street lighting. So
Okay.
I'd be double dipping, I'd be double charging for that, which is not fair.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But we don't install streetlights, do we? Or does the contractor install the streetlights?
We'll install the street lights.
You do? Okay.
I'm assuming you're talking about city-owned streets.
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking,
Yes,
that the charge would go to the
We'll put them in
development.
we'll put them in at the time of construction,
Okay,
but the cost of those is built into our monthly rates.
I got you.
Board have any questions? Charlie, I know this was a long, arduous process for you and staff. I know that some of us had numerous meetings. Told the New Bern 101 class this evening when we spoke that this is really no different than anything else in the construction industry. Things are skyrocketing from transformers to copper to garage doors to windows. Everything's going up. So the builders and developers we spoke with, they were really expecting. This was not a surprise to them. I think when they first thought about how much it could be, it was a surprise. But I want to give staff credit for all the time and energy that you all put into this, working with those developers to find something that's amenable. As our attorney has coined the phrase, find something that everyone is equally unhappy about. And I think that's where we landed on this one. So thank you.
A pleasure.
It's pleasure of the board on item number 11.
Do we have to do the public
Oh,
hearing?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we got to do a public hearing. I forgot it's a rate change. So at this time, I'll open the floor for a public hearing on item number 11. See, I was anticipating this is what was going to happen.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
And I just want to say, when you just said this is a public hearing on rate increase, I mean, it has nothing to do with residential electric rates, correct? We're not raising electric rates for any of our customers, correct?
This does not raise the rate.
This is for a developer that is putting in a brand-new subdivision that will have to pay his part on copper lines and transformers. And just so the public will know, transformers used to cost us, what, $900 to $1,000, and now they're in the $9,000 range with a 3-year wait. So, but this has nothing to do with electric rates at all.
No, sir.
Okay, so we got a motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. So I would entertain a motion from the board on item number 11.
And Mayor, just for a point of clarification, you have before you a revised ordinance that we finalized about 3:30 today. Over the weekend, our group of stakeholders were continually working through our draft and provided these some stylistic proposed changes that we made over the course of the day. Nothing material, but simply to make the ordinance hopefully read a little more simply and better. So the motion would be to adopt the ordinance before you rather than the one in the agenda package.
Okay?
All right. Everybody clear on that one?
The revised,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
So, Mayor, if there's no other conversations, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to amend the Section 5, or the revised Section 5, is that what I should say?
Yes, sir.
Revised Section 5 electric line extension policy of the City of New Bern Electric Department's customer service policy.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Best.
Alderman Best,
Yes?
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 12, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with Golden Leaf Foundation. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Shiles to come up and share the good news about this grant.
We could all use some good news.
Good evening, Board Mayor. On October 10th, we were notified that the city was awarded a Golden Leaf grant for retrofit of the existing East Road stormwater pump station. The intent of this project is to lower the intake on that pump. Right now, we're able to utilize the pump once we achieve high waters in the area. By lowering this pump, we should be able to better handle the water before it gets out of the ditch banks on heavy rain and intense rain events.
What's the grant for, George?
The amount,
Yes.
$249,760.
Good job.
Very good.
Thank you, George, to you and your staff, and to our grant writer and all that was involved with getting this grant money in here. It's a dire need, especially for the Duffyfield community. I was ecstatic when I heard that, when I got the good news from the Assistant City Manager, Mr. Williams. We were in a meeting, you and I, and he, and I got the news, and it's a long time coming, and I'm just so glad to see that we're finally putting some money in a pot so that we can get some of the water issues, and not hurricane related, basically, but just stormwater relief over into the Duffyfield community. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the Golden Leaf Foundation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call starting with Alderman Brinson.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes. Motion carries. Item number 13, consider adopting a resolution accepting the FY22 Bureau of Justice Assistant Bulletproof Vest Program grant.
So, Mr. Mayor, we would like to ask Chief Gallagher to come up and share some additional good news about another grant we received that'll help that department out.
Thank you, City Manager, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. We're excited that we were granted the opportunity to offset our cost to replace 19 ballistic vests for our staff and to also equip new officers coming on board. We anticipate purchasing 30 ballistic vests over the course of this grant program, which will last 2 years. We're excited that we're able to provide this level of security for our officers, and we are happily willing to match the other 50% to ensure that our staff is protected.
Very good.
Does everybody on your staff have a up-to-date, nice, top-of-the-line, whatever the purpose would be, bulletproof vest?
The sworn staff, yes. The ballistic material used for the bulletproof vest has a 5-year window of opportunity, and 19 of our staff will transition out of that 5-year window, so we will replace their equipment. So it is up to date.
Okay.
And when you say 5-year window, is that considered a warranty that comes with each vest? Or when we talk about replacement, is that just assessed by normal wear and tear?
Both, Alderman. The warranty only lasts 5 years.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
that 5-year window is based on a multitude of factors, but one of which is wear and tear.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, board, on number 13.
Adopt a resolution accepting the FY 2022 Bureau of Justice Assistance Bulletproof Vest Program grant.
Second.
I have a motion and 2 seconds, so you can choose whichever one you want, Ms. Clerk. Any discussion? If not, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Prill.
Alderman Prill,
Yes.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes. Thank you, Chief. Item number 14, consider adopting an ordinance for the demolition of 1607 High Street.
Mayor, this afternoon I received a call from Rebuild NC. They informed me that the property owner had received an award to rebuild a house, the house in question. They are aware that this is coming up on the agenda tonight, and they are aware that the city wants to tear this building down because of the issues we've had over the last several years with that. They made the request, they want to tear the house down themselves. Doing that will prevent a lien being placed on the house. If the lien is placed, then the award goes away because the property owners do not have the funds or the means right now to pay off a lien. So in my conversations with Rebuild NC, their plan is to have a contractor in place in the next 30 days to start the abatement. There is lead in the house that has to be abated, and then they're going to have someone come and tear the house down at Rebuild NC's expense. So at this time, I'm requesting that we table this item. We're going to monitor this over the next 30 to 60 days to make sure that Rebuild NC is doing what they told me they were going to do. And if they don't, we'll come back to the board and we'll address this situation.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes, very much. To know that Rebuild is gonna take this charge of demolition on that property, that's a plus for that homeowner, because I don't want to see anyone lose their home. And for them to just have a clean slate and demolish that property, and then rebuild a new home, that's fantastic. Yes, thank you. So is there any other comments?
No,
Do we just need
is
to-
Ms. Colberg, is she in the audience? And again, I've already communicated with Christie via email, so thank you for all the effort and the work that you've put into this. I think in the last 30 days, you've provided the incentive for rebuild to move this along probably faster than they would ever have done, working with the city. So thank you for that. And keep up that hard work. Put as much pressure on them as you can, as the city will, to get that decision made and a contractor in place and the demolition done as quickly as possible.
Do you need a motion on this or just direction?
Motion to table.
Motion to table.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that item 14 be tabled.
For,
December 13th.
Do we need to specify a date, 30 days, or the second meeting in November, whatever the date of that is?
Or later, whatever you like.
December 13th.
We can give an update the first meeting in December.
December
First meeting
13th.
in December? Okay.
Second?
Have a motion, have a second to table item number 14 until December the 13th, 2022. Any discussion? We'll just do a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15, consider adopting an ordinance for the demolition of 423 (501) Sandy Point Road.
Mayor,
Mr. Hughes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Shelley to make this presentation.
I'm guessing we don't have any slides for this?
We don't.
So we'll be using then the packet materials. Good evening again, Mayor and Alderman. So this particular property has been on our minimum housing work list for a while, and this is at the point where the owners have been not as cooperative as most, and so we are at the point, after many different attempts, to actually demolish this building. Patrick, do you want to come forward, please? You'll see in the packet there's also a whole chronology of all the attempts and contacts with the owners.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Just points of interest that are in this pack. One is these properties that are going to come up in the Sandy Point area are all part of the ETJ. Again, so that's one of the problems with dealing with the citizens in that area and getting them to understand that. It's city property, but not city property at the same time. The citizen that owns these properties, I've been in communication with him over the last month and really hitting hard and heavy this week and last week. He has an interest to do something with the property, says he's going to do it. 3 weeks go by, nothing's been done. I reattack, okay, I'm going to come do it tomorrow. Another time frame goes by, nothing is done. This is why I pushed to put this on this agenda for this one on this particular property, because out of the 5 that are in that area, this one parcel of property, if you turn to the aerial map of GIS, has 2 buildings that are on it. And the contents of these buildings over the course of the last 3 years have been sprawled out throughout that property by people going in there, using it for whatever nefarious needs they want to, live in there. And most of the citizens in that area go out there and pick up this junk because they don't want to see it. I've talked to the owner of the property in the course of today and told him that I'm still going to push for this to be on the agenda for you guys to approve it or not approve it. It's up to you. But I've also put a deadline on the homeowner that he has till Friday to come back to us to give us a demolition permit to do it himself. If you approve the ordinance and he still comes with a demolition permit, the ordinance will sit there and not do anything. He can carry on doing what he's doing and show his good faith effort in actually doing something with his properties that have been sitting there for so long. If he doesn't, then you have your ordinance that is in place, and then we'll implement the standard procedures that I use after you approve an ordinance of starting the process to demolish that property.
Can you also describe the level of deterioration on this and dilapidated?
All of these properties, there's 6 of them 6 structures in total, 5 properties in a whole. So one parcel has 2 properties, and each of them have been severely damaged by the hurricane and left after the hurricane. The homeowner did come in after the hurricane and did a standard construction cut out the 4 feet of drywall, pull out all the insulation, but then just let the property sit there. Over time of not paying the utility bills, that lets the properties become acclimated to whatever season that's in. The more humidity and moisture gets in the property, the more the building deteriorates. As the building deteriorates, it creates holes to let rainwater, people come in there, leave the doors open, same process. So over time, these buildings have sat there and deteriorated over time, where some of them are closed, being used as storage, but you still have the same problem. You don't have any power to acclimate that building, causing whatever deterioration was there after the storm to just sit there.
Is this inside the city limits of Bridgeton?
It's in Bridgeton, and if you look at the zoning map of how Bridgeton's laid out, some are actually city properties and some are in the ETJ, but that whole area of Sandy Point, the majority of it is in our ETJ.
And I see from the photos that it looks like some mitigation has taken place. Do you know if he's received FEMA funds or waiting on FEMA funds?
I do not. And I don't, and in my conversations with him, these properties were vacant at the time of Florence, so there were no homeowners in them, which would usually exclude any of the homeowners from getting any of those grant funds, because you didn't have anybody in the home at the time of the incident.
So I think, to be clear, they're not in the Bridgeton city limits. They're in the county area. It's in county area.
They're not in the
Bridgeton.
municipal limits.
It's not in the city limits either. It's in our city ETJ, which is our extra charge.
Have we ever demolished a house that's in the ETJ before?
We have. We did one over on Rocky Run Road. There was a trailer that was abandoned by the trailer owner. The property no longer wanted that trailer on there. The trailer owner refused to move it. So we demolished it. The property owner ended up suing the trailer owner and getting their money back in the process.
Mr. Davis, I know it's never the desire of the city to take anybody's property. We want them to do what they need to do. So I'm going to ask this question. I don't mean it in a disheartening manner, but how do we still get ownership of this when we go through this process, being that it's not in the city limits?
Yes, sir. If it comes to that, and again, just to elaborate on your point, we offer property owners every solution possible before we get to this point. We work with them because we prefer that they fix up their own property if at all possible. If that's not possible, we encourage them to sell the property, to recover whatever equity they have in the property. And the city will work with the new owner without penalty to either party. If they can't sell it, we ask them to give it to somebody else, Habitat, anybody that can fix it up, and we will work with that entity on the property to avoid penalties. If all of those fail, we will offer to accept the property from them and waive any penalties. So we go to every extent possible not to take property, not to penalize people, but to increase the housing stock available to people in the area and the ETJ. But there are times when it comes to this that we're out of tools, and this is the last tool. What we don't like about that is the demolition cost on these properties typically exceeds the value of the vacant lot when the property is demolished. So when that happens, the city files a lien against the property is then sold at a tax foreclosure sale, and the city and county will jointly own the property thereafter. So not only do you pay the demolition expenses, but you pay the attorney's fees on publication costs, which is why you see on your agenda properties, vacant lots that might sell for $2,000 where the city is owed $8,000 or $10,000. It's because of all these expenses.
Does the county have any, do they do any demoing of?
No, sir.
Yeah, yes, they do.
Well, they have a different, they have a nuisance statute. They don't have a minimum housing code, but they do have a nuisance statute, which is a bit narrower than this.
But they do demolish homes, yes.
So who would have, just to ask the question, who would have jurisdiction over this, the county or the city, because it's in our ETJ, or both?
For the tax foreclosure?
No, for demolition.
The city. Yeah, and just to be clear, a local government cannot have an ETJ into another city, right? River Bend is River Bend. New Bern can't go into River Bend with an ETJ. As a rule of thumb, you typically split the distance between the two jurisdictions, and if you want to encroach further than a half, you have to get the permission. So you never have a scenario where one ETJ is into another city. ETJ, by definition, is the county then, right? You're either in the city or you're in the county. So our ETJ is always over county property.
Has anybody had any conversations with the county about this house?
I have not, no.
Who's the gentleman? Mayor. The gentleman.
It's up to the board if somebody wants to make a motion to allow someone to speak.
Who is the gentleman?
Who are you, sir?
The owner?
My name is Mark Pickett. I'm a representative with Baptist on Mission Organization here working with
Okay.
Hurricane Florence.
Does the board want to allow him to speak?
Absolutely.
Is that a motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Sir, you can come up.
And Mayor, why do you approach this? Just to be clear too, the county is not going to exercise its jurisdiction within an ETJ area. That's going to be exclusive to the city if that's what you were thinking.
Let me ask this one question to the staff. Did you say there was multiple structures on the property? It has 2 addresses?
Yes, ma'am. This particular property, by GIS map, it is going to cover 423 Sandy Point, which would be the structure closest to the road. Actually, sorry, take that back. The structure closest to the road. The structure on the back is actually going to be 501 Sandy Point. I confirmed that with the tax officer. This parcel of land actually has 2 structures on it. With 2 different addresses as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir, if you would, just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Mark Pickett. I'm the site coordinator of the Baptist on Mission Rebuild Center in Old Cherry Point Road, James City area. Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to interrupt. I wanted to interject just briefly. I actually had a meeting with the county Friday morning, speaking with them about projects that we are doing. We are here, our main focus is Hurricane Florence rebuild work. We work 3 different counties, Pamlico, Craven, and Jones. We're actually talking with the county about multiple other potential projects. Several of those are properties that have structures on them that need to be demolished for violations' sake. We do not have 100% clear definitions of how those programs would work. But I at least wanted to express to you all that we have had some conversations with the county about some issues. I am not personally familiar with this particular property that's before you today, but I did at least want to let you know that some conversations with the county have been going on about the potential of our organization maybe being able to be a service to the residents and owners of the county and the city. I don't know that we would necessarily have an absolute answer, but I would propose to you all, if there's a possibility that our organization could be of assistance, we would love to be able to see if that's a possibility.
I appreciate that. I know you all do some great work. I know you've done a lot of work since Hurricane Florence. Just a question for you. Don't you typically focus on owner-occupied structures or structures that have habitants?
We do. Our primary focus is primary homeowners and the primary resident. That is our first and foremost mission. That is also a requirement for any grant funding that we use. We primarily rely on grant monies to be able to provide money to purchase materials or cost for incurred in rebuilding.
And you all don't take ownership, you just help fix the property up for the existing owner, is that correct?
Correct. We have no ownership requirement. We have no lien requirement. It is simply a ministry that we do to serve people that have been affected by storms and damage. We are working with some homeowners that don't qualify for our grant programs, but they are willing to put forth money for their own projects, and we work with them on those. Several here in the city, multiple in the county at large. So that's it.
Okay, so just to be clear, your organization hasn't had any contact or communication on this particular property, correct?
We have not. The particular property that you're focused on tonight, we do not, but I knew in the context of what you were talking about, we were familiar with the property that was just addressed.
Okay.
We had been made privy to that, about possibility of getting involved in that property. So I felt the need to at least speak up and try to express
All right,
to you
thank
all.
you. Board, do you have any questions for?
Did you specifically come here tonight to talk about this piece of property? Is that the reason?
I did not come tonight to specifically speak at all. I came tonight in support of Ms. Kohlberg with the long-term recovery group in the previous property,
But your organization has had conversation with the county about this piece of property on Sandy Point. Is that the way my understanding?
Not this piece of property. We're talking with the county. I think they have 2 districts that they have done some evaluations on. They're looking at a 3rd district that they're working on, homeowner properties that have needs or issues, and they're compiling those to present to us to see if there's anything that we could possibly help with.
I would suspect that this would probably, since it wasn't occupied when the hurricane came, I would suspect this would probably be a pretty low priority for any of these groups that would be looking to help folks. You want to get people back in their homes that were living there, not a vacant property.
However, it is our ministry to help homeowners any way that we possibly can.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that we can absolutely help in this case.
Right.
I kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit in this particular instance, but I did feel the need that if there's a potential that there's something that could be done that might be able to help a homeowner, we would love the opportunity to pursue that as a last resort, as the attorney was referring to.
Well, they do wonderful work. And if there's any way possible that they could step in and rebuild the property. Have you seen photos of it?
I am totally unfamiliar with this property
How
specifically.
long do you think that, could you start tomorrow morning with working with somebody about seeing if your organization could do something with this property? If we give them 30 days to see if it qualifies to be rehabilitated, go ahead.
Another part we'll have another conversation about it later, is not to say that what he wants to do is not a good idea. These 5 particular parcels in Sandy Point that we're talking about, this particular one right here, is actually in the flood zone as well. So part of the process that is gonna have to go through is if you were to rebuild, that particular structure is gonna either have to be raised or torn down and built brand new. Again, it's kind of like the same process of what the Winters is doing. The property owner says he's gonna demolish the property himself, just because the value of the structures are so low and the cost of rebuild being so high. He'd rather just have it sit there as vacant land.
Okay. What's the cost of the demolition on these properties?
This particular one is $1,600 per structure on the property, so you're looking at over $13,000.
$13,000. And what would, if we would take possession of the property at that point, no? What do we do at that
No,
point?
sir, we go through the tax foreclosure process with the county, and that would take 6 to 12 months. Incur those legal fees.
And then what's the tax value of the property?
Do I have a GIS data?
And then we have to split that with the county?
Proportionately with the taxes, not with our lien. Our lien doesn't count as an uncollected tax. So it's probably something close to 50-50 when the dust clears.
I just hate to spend $13,000-$14,000 for a piece of property that's not even inside the demolish, it's not even inside the city limits.
And in the flood zone.
Yeah. I would rather see the county step up and take care of it if it needs to be done.
I don't think they will though, right? Because it's in our ETJ.
Well, let's do away with ETJs.
If I may, Ms. Kohlberg also has some information about this property because they have been researching this property as well, if you're interested in listening to what she has to say.
Board, do you want to hear somebody else? If so, I need a motion to allow her to speak.
Yes.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? The mic is yours.
Hello, I am Christy Kohlberg. I am the Director of Operations at Craven County Disaster Recovery Alliance. As I'm hearing this conversation, I'm actually working with my recovery director to research this property a little bit more. And I think a lot of this discussion could be somewhat omitted if you understood what we do. We are the long-term recovery group. We work with Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Matthew clients, homeowners as we prefer. We have no interest in said property. We don't get ownership of the property. We don't take payback from the clients. We're not paid by city, county, state. We're fully grant funded. So with what we do pretty diligent case management into each of these homes as they're asking for assistance or as we're reaching out to find if they have recovery efforts that are needed. So as we look at this home, I can tell you that there was a renter that filed for FEMA, not the homeowner. I can also tell you that the homeowner owns multiple properties and is likely a landlord in this area. So, that is the type of diligence that we do in these cases to make sure that we're helping those who really need that assistance. We don't want to fix landlord houses. We want to fix those homes where the homeowners have no other option for recovery. I have actually had a meeting with Mr. Shelley and Mr. Patrick today and, explained a little bit about what we do and how I think we could really benefit the city with projects such as this one and the previous one that was just tabled at High Street. We've been in this for 26 days with that case and we've seen more activity than what has happened in 2 years. So with our partnerships with Rebuild, with Baptist, with the county, and hopefully now the city, I really think that we could start changing the hurricane efforts in our county and city if we all just work together on these cases.
So what do you want us to do for this piece of property?
That is your decision, but I have given you the data that we have collected, and you can use that knowing that it has been collected.
So with what you said that this was most likely a landlord-owned home, but that's
Right.
not where you
The homeowner did
work.
not file for FEMA for that home. It was
Okay.
a renter.
So if this is not a property that your group would typically help
We
with,
would not.
and the property owner wants it demolished because the value of fixing it is too much, I guess the only issue or the only question we have here is, does the city want to take on the burden of the expense of this demolition or not? No.
Yes, we're not here to give answers. We're here to make sure that the proper data is given for the board, the city, the county, the homeowners to make the best educated decision in the future of these homes.
Okay.
But this expense would go to the homeowner.
Eventually.
Yeah. of demo. Mr. Shelley or Mr. Easel?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for what you do also.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is, I'm looking at the chronological order of events here, and it doesn't appear to me that this homeowner has actually been stepping up to the plate and getting you the necessary information that y'all needed for permits and whatever. So you've not had any contact with him within the last 30 days?
We've had,
Okay.
when he originally turned in permits to repair the properties, and the permits didn't have all the adequate information filled out, so we didn't accept the permits, gave them back to him. I even detailed an email explaining what was needed to be done on each particular property in order to be able to accept the permits. Never returned any of the permits to us. Chunk of time went by, 2-3 months, called him again, hey, are you gonna do anything with an email I sent you? What email? You know, sent it to him again. And he's like, okay, I'll just demolish them. Never brought any demolition permits. They sent him 2 different emails with blank demolition permits in them to fill out and bring back to us to say, give us some type of good faith effort that you are actually gonna do something with these properties, and we won't have to come to where we are right now.
Right. And they are rental properties, do you know?
At the time of the storm, yes. There hasn't been anybody living in any of them since, though.
Thank you. So Attorney Davis, if the city demolishes this property, it's a county parcel, it's not a city parcel, it's a county parcel. So how would that charge be imposed on that parcel of land? It would go on the county tax bill, and it becomes a county issue?
Yes, ma'am. Well, it would go in the county tax bill, but we would request that the county initiate the foreclosure in an attempt to collect our lien. And they are always a good partner with us, and I would expect them to do everything they can to be helpful to us. The math problem, though, is that the county is going to spend $700 to $1,000 to collect what may be no back taxes for them. Taxes may be current on that parcel, but to collect our $13,500. If it's not paid, the property will be sold at auction, and we may be the highest bidder, the city, with our $13,500 lien, which means you get the property back. And what we don't know is what's the real value of a vacant lot in the flood zone in that area. I simply don't know. I would expect, my expectation is low that we would recover our money. I say that because most property owners are pretty good at math when it comes to their own property, and if he could demolish it and still have equity in his lot, I would expect him to do that.
So the tax value, the land value is $15,000.
Oftentimes too, and I don't know, I know our assistant city attorney has spent time speaking with this gentleman as well. Again, we do our best to educate and cajole people into helping themselves. There are 2 groups of folks. Some folks simply don't have the means to help themselves, and we understand that problem. There's just hopes and dreams and no money to back up the problem. In this case, our understanding is there are resources to address the problem, but not the ability to generate enough momentum to accomplish the task and to follow up with meetings and to take the steps necessary. So it wouldn't surprise me, in a lot of these cases, we will work out payment agreements with property owners where we agree by contract to the demolition, and they agree to pay us back on a monthly basis for 2 or 3 years for us to recover our demolition cost. So I'm not sure that's been offered to this gentleman.
That was directly offered to him in a phone call. He refused that for the simple fact he doesn't like making payments on it.
Okay.
Excuse me, what did you say, sir? He refused what?
That question proposed by Mr. Davis of, we'll do the demolition, you pay the city back over a certain period of time, posed directly to the homeowner, and he refused to take that offer for the fact that he doesn't like to make payments on things.
Has anybody ever suggested that he give it to the fire department to burn down for training?
I'm not hesitant.
That has been suggested, but then comes into the area of, is that in the fire department's jurisdiction to go do that?
Well, it's not in the cities, but
some of
Well,
these. Some
it's
are-
it's in Little Swift Creek's
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
So
That's a good idea.
the financial conundrum here is what's so different than any of the other ones that we do, is our goal is to get this property back on the tax roll.
Right,
This is never going to happen for the city. So while we may recoup our demolition cost,
best case.
best case, it's never going to get back on the tax roll. So I agree with Alderman Astor. I think you contact them, give them some matches and some gas and tell them to go at it.
You gotta ask what the tax value of the land was. In February of this year, the land alone was valued at $15,000.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'm hearing is maybe we table this for 30 days, or the other option is to adopt the demolition ordinance and instruct the city manager not to schedule the demolition for 30 days and report back on any progress that he's made with the owner. Sometimes it takes.
It doesn't look like he's gonna get,
Well, I recommend what Mr. Davis said in the last part, adopt the measure and let it sit there. Give him till Friday and let him see if he's gonna actually hold up to his agreement. And say, hey, look, I will bring you your demolition permit, like I said, by Friday. And start showing some type of good faith effort. If not, then we'll wait 30 more days to see what he does from there.
Well, my concern is what I heard you say was whatever solution we come up with this one, there's 4 more properties coming behind it.
Correct.
oh,
So this problem's not going to go away.
All right, Mr. Davis, I want to further complicate this.
Okay.
If we go through this process and the city becomes the owner of the property, can we ask it to be annexed into the city?
You can, yes, sir, you can. Preferably, I don't know if it's contiguous, it would be best if it is contiguous to an existing city border. Even if not, we can make that work, but that is a possibility.
I'm just saying that the other 4 parcels, are they near this one?
They're all in the general Richmond area, yes. You can walk 5 minutes to each one. No, there's 2 of them that are actually adjacent to each other.
yeah, but how
But
far
then-
away is it?
But is all 4 of these properties in the flood zone?
The 5 parcels, 4 of them are in the flood zone.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
And-
Getting tired of this one, how about y'all?
Yeah, I'm tired of it too.
And just to be clear too, the demolition ordinance does not mandate that the city manager act on it, just so we're clear. It can sit there forever. Or we can bring it back fresh.
So you can use this as leverage.
That's what staff is asking for, yes.
Then, that being said, and with that being the understanding, I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance for the demolition of 423 and 501 Sandy Point Road. Do I need to add anything to that, Scott, for the city manager to hold?
Let's do it 2 steps. You could adopt that, and then the board can give the city manager direction as to scheduling any demolitions.
Just direction.
All
Okay.
right, so I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Everyone understand the motion? Let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Royal.
Alderman Royal,
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Brinson,
Yes.
Alderman Creel,
Yes.
Mayor Odom.
Yes, motion carries.
Now, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to give direction to the city manager to hold this demolition ordinance until enough time for the owner of the property to decide whether or not he is going to demolish it himself. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, sir. Let's, in other words, delay the demolition, maybe for 30 days and report back to the board.
That would be fine.
Everyone good with that?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Nothing
I
else.
would actually like information on the other 4 properties as well, to start looking at that. And
I can put the email together for that to Mr. Stoll.
Is it the same owner?
Same one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming up tonight.
All right, item number 16, consider adopting a budget ordinance amendment for FY 22-23. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, I'd like to ask Ms. Ostrom to make this presentation.
The budget ordinance amendment recognizes grants of $249,760 from the Golden Leaf Foundation, which was item number 12. from earlier. It's for the Rose Street pump retrofit and $45,000 from the North Carolina Resilient Coastal Communities Program for the Duffy Field Community Resilience Improvement, the Basin Restoration Enhancement Project. Neither grant requires a match. The amendment also acknowledges a grant of $14,891 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. It's the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant, which was item number 13. Matching funds of $14,891 are required and have been budgeted in the Police Department's uniform expense account.
Board have questions?
None, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the budget ordinance amendment for the FY 22-23.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Astor.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey?
Yes.
Alderman Best? Alderman Brinson?
Yes.
Alderman Creel?
Yes.
Alderman Royal?
Yes.
Mayor Odom?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 17, consider adopting an ordinance to amend the Township 7 Sewer Improvements Project Fund. Mr. Hughes.
Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. Hughes to come up and give a brief description of the Township 7 Sewer Improvements Project and its timeline.
Jordan, who did you make mad to be item number 17 on this agenda?
Well, Mayor, somebody's got to draw the short straw. This is my turn. Mayor, members of the board, what you have before you tonight is a budget amendment to transfer money from the sewer fund into the Township 7 Project Fund. This is a project we've been working on for a number of years, kind of off and on again, coordinating with some of the DOT work in James City. The bids for the project will actually be opened, will be received and hopefully opened this Thursday. If everything goes well, we get the contractor here, get under contract. We anticipate being under construction with this project in early calendar year 23. So just after the new year, we hope to be moving forward with it and actually get some pipe in the ground. A few of the components for the project, mainly the pump station components, have an extremely long lead time. We typically actually provide these to the contractor. That way we get exactly what we want, exactly the equipment we want into the pump station. So we want to go ahead and get those ordered even before we know who the contractor is. It's not going to make any difference, the same equipment going into the pump station. So the budget amendment transfers the funds needed to go ahead and issue the POs for that equipment. It's the pumps, the control panels, the telemetry equipment, the backup generator, the automatic transfer switch, the things that essentially, all the moving components in the pump station.
Board have questions?
Yes, I heard you mention James City. Are there other communities that comprise townships number 7?
Yes, ma'am. For the most part, this project will benefit all of our sewer customers that are on the James City side of the Trent River. So anybody that's in New Bern proper, as well as the areas outside of the municipal boundaries that we serve with our step sewer system, they will also benefit from this project.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Make a motion that we adopt an ordinance to amend the Township 7 Sewer Improvement Project Fund.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best?
Yes.
Alderman Brinson?
Yes.
Alderman Creel?
Yes.
Alderman Royal?
Yes.
Alderman Astor?
Yes.
Mayor Odom?
Yes. Thank you. Appointments. Alderman Brinson, any appointments tonight?
Yes, sir. I have, like to nominate Eric Thompson to the Board of Adjustment. He submitted his application, and I believe it's been forwarded to all of you, and he's expressed his interest to me.
I have a motion for Mr. Thompson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any more? Is that all, sir? Alderman Best, any appointments?
I just want to thank Alderman Brinson. He's so generous to let this candidate fill the regular position of the Board of Adjustment. I don't have any, that would take care of my appointment.
Okay. Looks like the board is being asked to appoint
Two alternates.
David Cox to the Kursama Board. That's typically a representative from the city for the solid waste industrial collection site, the landfill, essentially. It's typically been the Director of Public Works over the years. With that position being vacant, I think the recommendation from staff was David Cox, who's in charge of that program for the city, or if you have anyone else in mind.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appointment of David Cox as New Bern's representative to the Coastal Regional Solid Waste Management Authority.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
before you go on, can I ask a question, please? Maybe I need to direct this question. It's about appointments.
Sure.
To you, Mr. Hughes. No, maybe I need to direct it to the city clerk because she usually handles the appointments to the different boards. Is there a process in place? Because I know it's kind of taxing to me to try to find people to serve on these boards. And and if we had a process, do we have a process in place, like on our website or something, where our citizens can go out there and apply for these different boards and submit an application in?
We do.
Okay.
There's a link for them to email me directly, their
Okay.
resume,
Okay.
their experience, their interest in
Okay.
which boards they'd like to serve on.
Okay. And that's the only source that we have for is our citizens being informed and they can go to that website? There's no other announcements or anything that's maybe possibly done through the course of the year or something to highlight individuals? I know these boards are term periods, but that's the only source that we have?
We do mention it during New Bern 101,
Okay.
which is a great resource
Good.
when you've got a lot of citizens that are participating in that,
Okay.
and they may not be aware of an opportunity to get involved. So it's announced during those sessions.
Okay,
And
thank
on
you.
the best, we can certainly release that on social media and press releases as well, just to let the citizens know that they'd like to serve in any capacity. We have opportunities throughout the year for that.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, just want to be clear, point of clarification. So the appointment that Alderman Brinson made tonight was to fill the open vacant position that Alderman Best has.
That's my understanding
Okay.
based on her
Yes.
comment.
All right, so the
Yes.
board, we still have 2 openings for the Board of Adjustments that are all alternates. So
Okay.
Alderman Kinsey, any appointments tonight?
Not tonight, sir.
Alderman
Not tonight, sir.
Alderman Royal?
No, sir.
Alderman Prill?
No.
All right, attorney's report.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
City manager's report.
Two things, sir. One, downtown Saturday, downtown businesses are going to be offering trick-or-treating. We're going to be giving out candy here at City Hall from 4 to 6. If any of you would like to participate, please reach out to Brenda and let her know. Also, Parks and Recreation will have some games and activities downtown, and they will be doing a Halloween movie at Union Point Park Saturday evening, so it should be a lot of fun. Also, our work session is coming up on Thursday, November 3rd, from 12:30 to 5 p.m., so you have a list of proposed topics to discuss, and you can add to that list the salary study in the ETJ. When you look at your list, if there is anything that else that you would like to have part of this discussion, please let me know, and we will get preparations done. If there's things that you prefer not to talk about this time, let me know as well, and we will go from there.
Mr. Hughes, the date and the time, if you could just remind the board on our work session.
That is Thursday, November 3rd, 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m.
So board, I'm just going to throw this out there. There's a lot of topics here. I had projected this meeting to the New Bern 101 group. They asked me how long it was going to last. I said 7:30. I was off a little bit tonight. So we never know how long these are going to last. So just want to throw these options out there to you. If come the end of this work session that day, if the board so chooses, we could continue that work session to a later date or time. Could be the next day, it could be the following week. So it's just something we may want to keep in mind when we come to that event that day. In case we don't get through all these agenda items, we have that flexibility. So, is that all?
Yes, sir.
Any new business? We'll start with Alderman Prill.
No, I have nothing, Mayor.
Alderman Royal.
I would just like to make mention of the flyer that we have before us, save the date for the medical fundraiser for our community advocate, Alfred Barfield, on Saturday, November 5th, 2020, 11 to 3 p.m. at the Omega Center.
Very good. Alderman Astor.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Alderman Kinsey.
Not tonight, sir.
Alderman Best.
Yes, I do. I just need an update from, I guess she's already left. But, Mr. Hughes, can you give me an update on the Pleasant Hill Community Center, please, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
I have citizens asking.
Okay, the sheet rock subcontractor started to work at some point last week, so they are busy doing that. Once they finish, the tile floors will be going in, and then kitchen cabinets will be going in, and then we should be about ready to have our grand opening. So I don't want to give it any time because it's been, every time we've gotten to a sub to do their work, there's been some type of delay in some way, shape, or form. I want to tell you that our grand opening was going to be this summer, and that's originally what we wanted to do, but we're at the mercy of our subs and the supplies that they're working.
Okay. All right.
But we're getting close.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, another complaint that I had, which I talked with you earlier about this, is the shelter at Evergreen Cemetery. Do you know when, if that shelter would be painted, upgraded, whatever it takes to, so it cannot be an eyesore for our citizens when they come to the cemetery to visit or bury their loved ones, that they have to stand over there under a shelter that looks like it's 50 years old.
Yes, ma'am. There are currently no plans to replace that in our budget, but we can definitely have staff go ahead and repaint that as needed and make sure that that structure looks as good as it can possibly be.
Okay.
We'll go out there tomorrow and check it out.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Just wanted to say, but he's already left, but I forgot to thank Matthew Shelley and his staff for their hard work, along with Ms. Margaret Shields for getting the Golden Leaf Grant. And that's all I have.
Alderman Britson.
I'm going to try and keep this brief, and Madam Clerk, I can email this to you later, but since our next meeting is not till November 8th, and there's a lot of veterans activities going on during that week, I was going to announce a few of them that are going on. November 7th at 9:30, American Legion Post 539, if you remember, cleaned up the veterans' graves in Greenwood Cemetery last year. As a service project, they're going to go back through and make sure that they're still clean a year later, prior to Veterans Day, and also Wreaths Across America. They are an official designee for Wreaths Across America this year in Greenwood Cemetery. Then on November 8th, the next day, I'm glad Alderman Best brought up Evergreen Cemetery, because at 9:30 on November 8th, American Legion 539 and the Montford Point Marines are going to do an initial cleanup of veterans' headstones. So it's a continuation of that project in our city cemeteries to clean up veterans' headstones. They believe that one Montford Point Marine is buried in Greenwood, and we think that there are 8 buried in Evergreen, which is why the Montford Point Marines want to be involved in that. This will be a multi-day project, as the group also believes we've got twice as many veterans in Greenwood as we did in Evergreen. You can contact American Legion Post 539 or myself with questions, or you can just show up to help. So again, that's November 7th and 8th for cemetery cleanup. Then on November 9th from 10 to 1 p.m., the Craven County Veterans Stand Down will be at the National Guard Armory on Glen Burnie Drive. This is sponsored by the Veterans Organic Garden and NC Works to support homeless veterans and veterans in need with free services and food. Again, November 9th from 10 to 1 at the National Guard Armory. Then on November 11th, there are 2 things that are going on. There's the March for the 22, which is a fundraiser to prevent veteran suicides and support veterans in need. It's basically a march. You can either start in Maysville or Pollocksville or Freshwater Brewery, depending on how far you want to walk to Union Point. For more information, go to www.marchforthe22.us. 4 is FOUR in that, and 22 is the numerals 22. And while this fundraiser is under American Legion 539, the money raised goes directly into the Veterans Funds for veterans programs and veterans in need. The other thing that's going on November 11th is the Craven County Veterans Luncheon, sponsored by the Craven County Veterans Council. It'll be at Temple Baptist. Doors will open at 11 with the ceremony, and a free lunch will start at noon for the first 250 veterans. And they will also present the Veteran of the Year Award and the Veteran Lifetime Achievement Award at that ceremony. And then last but not least, I'd like to enter into the public record that I'm currently the judge advocate for American Legion Post 539, which is why I will not be announcing any fundraisers for its general fund in the Alderman meetings. I'm also the treasurer for the Craven County Veterans Council, but I expect to be nominated as vice chairman this December. Since the city of New Bern does not appropriate any funds to or directly support either of these nonprofits, I do not foresee any conflicts of interest with my duties as alderman. So I just wanted to add that caveat at the end, since I am making announcements on their behalf. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. Do we need a closed session?
Yes, Mayor. Pursuant to 143-1311A3 to maintain our attorney-client privilege, and pursuant to 143-1311A4 to discuss potential economic development incentives, and finally pursuant to 143-1311A5 to discuss the potential acquisition of real property.
Have a motion?
Second. So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are in closed session.